Hello! Yes, and welcome to our Objective 4.2 notes. Objective 4.2 says I can solve quadratic equations by factoring, and that, my friends, is what we are going to do right now. So, solving by factoring. So if you haven't watched the 4.1 video yet, definitely do that. That goes through the process of factoring, making sure we understand that. Solving by factoring is really straightforward if we're good at factoring, all right? So if we're struggling with factoring, solving by factoring will obviously still be a bit of a challenge. Now, solving by factoring is rooted in a very simple property. It's called the zero product property. And it says that if the product of any factors is 0, then one of the factors must be 0. Think, if I multiply a number by 0, I get 0. If I know that the product of numbers that I'm multiplying is 0, then I can say, well, then obviously one of these numbers has to be 0. That's the only way to get 0 when we multiply. So that's the logic behind, and really the crux behind how solving by factoring works. So with that being said, here's the steps to solve by factoring. The first step, make sure our equation is equal to 0. So if I look at my sample problem here, I have x squared plus 5x plus 4 equals negative 2. First thing I need to do is add 2 to both sides so I can get my quadratic equal to 0. So I have x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. And then I'm going to factor the quadratic equation. So I'll say, okay, x plus 3 times x plus 2 equals 0, right? 3 times 2 is 6. 3 plus 2 is 5. Checks out. Okay, so what we have now is we have two things being multiplied together to give me 0. Well, using the zero product property, that tells me that one of these things has to be 0. And when we're solving by factoring, we assume they are actually both 0. So we're going to set each factor equal to 0. So I'll say x plus 3 equals 0, and x plus 2 equals 0. I subtract 3, I get x equals negative 3. I subtract 2, I get x equals negative 2. And those are my two solutions to this quadratic equation. All right, so let's do some more examples here. Looking at letter A, if we have something that's already factored, all we need to do, set the factors equal to 0 and solve. So I'll say r plus 5 equals 0, 2r minus 1 equals 0. So that means when I subtract 5, r equals negative 5. When I add 1, I'd get 2r equals negative 1. Divide by 2, I'd get, so r equals negative 5, or r equals negative 1/2. And those would be my two solutions there. All right, looking at letter B here, we have a quadratic. It's already set equal to 0, so all I need to do is factor it. So I'd say, well, let's think here. This one's a little tougher to do off the cuff. So we have negative 18. So I need two numbers that multiply to negative 18, add to negative 3. That would be negative 6 and 3, right? Negative 6 times 3 will give me negative 18. Negative 6 plus 3 will give me negative 3. So that means my factors are a minus 6 and a plus 3. And then I set those equal to 0. A minus 6 equals 0. A plus 3 equals 0. Solve, I get a equals 6. Or a equals negative 3. And there we go for those. Fantastic. Looking at letter C, our last one here, 3n squared plus 32 equals negative 28n. So I'm starting this, I see, okay, we're not set equal to 0. So first thing I need to do, add 28n to both sides. Add 28n. I get 3n squared plus 28n plus 32 equals 0. Okay, so now that I have it set equal to 0, I need to factor. Now notice I have a leading coefficient that is not 1. It's 3. So this is when I'd use my AC method. I'd say 3 times 32 equals what, 96? So I need factors of 96 that add up to 28. Whew, all right. Well, there's lots of factors of 96 actually. And this is the part that will take time, right? So thinking about it, I know 25 times 4 is 100, which means that 24 times 4 is 96. 24 and 4 add up to 28. So I can factor this out. Remember, I'm going to use those numbers, 24 and 4, to rewrite 28n. So I'm going to say 3n squared plus 24n plus 4n plus 32 equals 0. And now we're going to factor this by grouping. Factor out of 3n, I'm left with, let's see, n plus 8. Factor out of 4, I'm left with n plus 8. Combine our outside terms, and I get 3n plus 4 times n plus 8 equals 0. So there it is in factored form. Now what do I do once I have my factors? Well, I set my factors equal to 0. I'll say 3n plus 4 equals 0, or n plus 8 equals 0. So I'll say 3n equals negative 4. Divide by 3, I find that n equals negative 4/3. Or when I subtract 8 from both sides, I find that n equals negative 8. And those are my solutions to that original quadratic equation up here. All right, and that's it. That's factoring by grouping. Again, a lot of it depends on the factoring skill. So if that's something we're still working on, keep working on that. If you want to see some more samples, go ahead and check out that sample problems video. Otherwise, go ahead and get started on those practice problems. See how you do. This is Mr. Carter signing off. I'll see you next time.